We've all looked up ways to create passive income, from ideas like real estate, dropshipping, or online surveys. But there's one problem with all of these. They require tons of time or money up front just to get started. If we really want to generate true passive income, it should be by something that requires very little time commitment. And one way to do this is by letting your money work for you, just like the wealthiest people in the world do. One of the simplest ways to start doing this is through dividend-paying ETFs. These funds pay you cash just for holding them. But how do you know which ETFs can provide you true passive income? I have done hours of research to bring you the 3 best dividend ETFs for steady and growing passive income. The first ETF is SCHD, the Schwab US Dividend Equity ETF. This is a very popular option for many investors generating passive income. But what makes it so special? If we take a deeper look, we'll see that they have a low management expense ratio of just 0.06%, and the dividend yield is just 3.5% per year. But I haven't even shown you the most attractive part of the fund, which is the key to growing passive income through dividends. If we take a look at their dividend growth rates, we can see that over the last 3, 5, and 10 years, they have about a 10% dividend growth rate. But what does this actually mean? Check this out. Let's say, for example, we took a $10,000 one-time investment and simulated what could happen in 15 years' time using these historical growth rates. At face value, your $10,000 investment would return around $350 based on your 3.5% yield. But now let's take into account what happens when some years go by using these growth rates. We will assume that they continue into the future, and if they did, by year 15, that initial $10,000 one-time investment could now be paying you about $3,000 per year. This would represent about a 30% yield on cost. And although this is a hypothetical scenario, I think you can begin to see how time plays a pretty important role in building passive income. But what is SCHD actually made up of? This is a key consideration when reviewing any ETF. They track the Dow Jones US Dividend 100 Index, which is made up of many large cap companies from Pfizer, Coca-Cola, Pepsi, Verizon, BlackRock, and the list goes on. There are about 100 companies that make up SCHD, and this works out to a sector diversification as about 18% financials, 16% healthcare, and 14% consumer staples. Now let's take a look at another popular ETF within the dividend investing space, and this is VIG by Vanguard. So why does this ETF get brought up when talking about dividend income? It all starts with its dividend yield of about 1.7% and the management expense ratio of 0.06%. VIG tracks the performance of the S&P US Dividend Growers Index, which has over 330 companies within it. This ETF also trades over $200 per share, compared to SCHD trading around $28 per share. But when you look at the individual companies that VIG is actually tracking, you might see why some investors prefer this ETF. The top sectors start with technology at 25%, financials at 20%, and healthcare at approximately 15%. So very different from our first option, SCHD, which had a very low technology weighting. Focusing back on VIG, the individual companies are ones such as Broadcom, Apple, Microsoft, JP Morgan, and Visa. So these are all established stocks on the market, which contributes to the returns that VIG is capable of. But the main question here is, what are the dividend growth rates? We really want to see how this fund will grow with time. VIG has about an 8% dividend growth rate over the past 10 years. And we should also point out that they have had 11 consecutive years of dividend growth and 18 years of consecutive dividend payments. These could be a consideration when trying to select your preferred ETFs for your portfolio. So now that we've reviewed 2 dividend ETFs, SCHD and VIG, let's see how our third one compares. The iShares Core Dividend Growth ETF, better known as DGRO, is another option for dividend investors. The starting dividend yield is about 2% and their management expense ratio is 0.08%. But what really makes DGRO popular are the dividend growth rates. Across the 3 and 5 years, they have averaged about 8%, and over 10 years they have increased the dividends by about 18%. On top of that, they also have had 10 years of consecutive dividend growth and payments. The fund is advertised for its income-focused approach through dividend distributions, and the index that they are tracking is the Morningstar US Dividend Growth Index. The next question you may have: are on the holdings and how they compare to both SCHD and VIG. The top sector within DGRO is financials at about 20%, technology at 18%, and healthcare at 17%. The top companies within this fund are ones like JP Morgan, Johnson & Johnson, Microsoft, and more. So you can begin to see some differences when compared to our other ETFs in SCHD and VIG, especially in terms of their top stocks and sectors. All of these ETFs have their own set of benefits, whether this is their high starting yield, continuous dividend growth rate, or sector diversification, but all investors will have their own opinions on which ETF is best for their portfolio. If you have an ETF that you like for passive income, let me know in the comments below, and as always, be sure to like and subscribe if you found this video insightful.